What's up, friends? Welcome into another episode of Tables, Tailgates, and Top Loaders. So happy to have you all aboard for this very crazy special episode. I'm your host, TB. Thank you all so very much for stopping in and checking out the 3Ts. We have a lot to get to, so much to get to. So let me start right away by apologizing to the hobby enthusiast and the wrestling marks. Those of you who are looking forward to some wrestling talk, to some card talk this week, I got to apologize to you. There's not going to be much of that, if any of that, on today's episode. Heading into this week, prepping for the show, that wasn't my intention, but with the craziness of what has gone down over the last few days, and specifically the last few hours, I'm sure you all will understand. So I was about to sit down and record this podcast earlier this morning when the news broke about the firing of Coach Sean McDermott. That's obviously thrown everything into a state of chaos. And as I've tried to sit down and adjust my notes and adjust my outline, more and more information has trickled in. And so, yeah, I'm going to try to follow my notes. I'm going to try to stay calm. But yeah, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to digest as a Bills fan. And so what was my first reaction? I would say shock. Shock was my first reaction. Look, been a Bills fan for a very, very, very long time. We're coming up on 40 years of being a fan, right? I'm 46 years old. I have seen a ton of coaches. This isn't Chan Gailey. This isn't Dick Geron. This isn't Rex Ryan. This is a coach in Sean McDermott who has come in and who has literally changed the entire organization from top to bottom. And he has helped get us, and when I say us, I mean not just the organization, not just the Bills, but Western New York, right? He has helped get this team, this franchise out of the pit of irrelevancy, and no longer are the Bills a complete laughingstock to the entire league, to football fans. I mean, once we hit the drought and once we were in the middle of the drought, that's what we were. We were a irrelevant franchise, and we were considered the laughingstock and the butt of all jokes. And to a lot of people, we still are, because we can't win the big one. But it's sad, right? I'm looking at this, and Sean McDermott is not like some of these other coaches that we've had through the drought years. So in that respect, I'm sad for McDermott. I'm sad because he's done so much in the last 9 years, and I absolutely respect the hell out of him. Were there times he has made me incredibly angry, incredibly frustrated as a fan? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't lie and tell you that there weren't times. There are times that I was extremely frustrated, and I called him Coach McClappy, and I just losing my mind over the stupid defensive timeouts. But I think for the most part, as he has gone through his 9 years with this team, with this organization, I think for the most part, he has learned from his mistakes. I do believe that as a coach and as a leader of this team, as a leader of men, he has continued to evolve. I do truly believe that he cared for this team, for this city. I think he has cared about the history of this franchise and what this franchise and team has meant to Western New York. And I think what winning means to Western New York. I think he cares. I think he legitimately cares about those things. I think the players love to play for him, and I think they love him as a leader of men and as a leader of the franchise. And as you could see, as the news is breaking and as certain social media accounts from current players are starting to make their posts and stuff, I think you could see this actually in what players are responding. He is well liked. In fact, he's loved by his players, by the Bills players. But having said all that, sometimes I think despite the success, despite him coming in and changing the culture of the franchise, I think sometimes change is absolutely necessary. And I think that goes for all of us in life. It's so easy to get stagnant. It's so easy to stay in a bubble. It's so easy to never take chances, never take risks. But sometimes I think things just have to be shaken completely up in order to move forward. And that goes for us, it goes for you, it goes for me, it goes for everybody. Sometimes you have to move forward, and you can only move forward by making changes, by shaking things up. So as a diehard Bills fan, I hope that this is a case where a shakeup is absolutely necessary to find that next level of success, which ultimately should be a Super Bowl trophy. Now, I think Sean McDermott will instantly get a job. There are so many open jobs in the NFL right now. I think I would argue he will have his pick. He will have his choice of many of the jobs that are currently on the table because I think he is so well respected. I think he is well liked, and I think he can come in and clean up a lot of these trash culture jobs that are out there. There's a lot of terrible franchises right now that are just at the bottom of the dumps. You know, they're in a dumpster somewhere, and they need someone to like get all the crap together and find a way forward, or find the way to the light. Because, oh my gosh, how many dumpster franchises are there right now? There's a good number, at least 5 to 8 that are just in total disarray. So I don't think he's going to have any difficulty finding a team. And I think he's going to be a welcome addition to any of those down on their luck franchises, down on their luck organizations. I think he will go wherever he wants, and I think ultimately he will help them find success. But here's what I have a problem with. There's no way you can objectively look at this 2025 Bills season and blame Sean McDermott for the outcome of this year. I have come on this podcast. I have done my game previews. I have talked so much week to week about this team, and it started all the way back in training camp, even before training camp, and it continued all through the season, into the playoffs, up until losing to Denver on Saturday afternoon, which eventually, during this show, we will get to it. But I have said from the beginning, this is a significantly flawed roster that just got worse as the season wore on, as the injuries piled up, and given the bag of tools that he was handed to make things work this year, I think this season is by far his finest coaching performance of them all. And it's like, do you ask any people in other industries to do a job and not give them the tools needed to succeed? Do you hire some construction worker and to build you a house, and you give them a bunch of tools that are all broken and busted up and not sharp and not ready to go? Do you hire a mechanic to fix your car and then expect them to use worn, broken parts to replace the ones that you need fixing in your car? No. So it's like the garbage he was handed this year was absolutely crazy, but somehow Coach McDermott managed to make it work. And the thing that absolutely blows my mind about this whole situation, and as the hours have unfolded during this day and more information has come forward, the thing that absolutely blows my mind is the genius who handed McDermott these garbage tools and expected him to do a great job. Uncle Scrooge McBean, the winner of the 2025 I Got You in My Sights TB Award, for God's sake, was literally given a promotion, and he was rewarded for the atrocious job he did this year. Help me understand that. That's the thing that absolutely blows my mind. And this is where I'm really going to try to calm down and not lose it. But this is what I just don't get. Help me make sense of this lunacy, because it's absolute lunacy to me. And that's where I'm struggling with the totality of this thing. You all have heard my Brandon Beane rants. I don't think I've ever been as mad as I was at the trade deadline during the entire season, when it came down to not doing anything at the trade deadline, and who was leading the charge of that fiasco? None other than Brandon Beane. But even before that, well before we got to the trade deadline, he rolled into the season with a wide receiver room that just wasn't good. Is there anyone that can come into the season, whether you follow this team or you don't follow this team, and really look at the wide receiver room and go, oh yeah, they're set? But not only did he say the wide receiver room was good, he doubled down on that. He goes on local Buffalo radio sports talk shows, and he attacks the hosts who decide to question him on the quality of the wide receiver room. And he treats them like complete garbage. He looked like a petulant child who didn't get his way. And that was even before the season kicked off. The hosts were like, hey, why didn't you invest more in the wide receiver room? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a great wide receiver room. Look at what we did last year. And blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, he got an attitude. And like I said, he sounded like a spoiled, rotten child on that radio show for the world to see. And this was a subject and topic of national sports shows throughout the beginning of the season, was Beane going on a local sports talk radio and just acting like a fool. So then to see the roster get depleted with injury after injury, and all he does is simply cherry pick practice squad guys. He brings back guys off the couch who literally haven't played in weeks or months. He pulls guys who have been here before, who are way past their prime. Outside of Jordan Poyer, he doesn't add anybody of any juice to this team. And so it's just astonishing to me. But as I said before, the icing on the cake, and the thing that made me so frustrated. I was so mad at the trade deadline to just see him have this deal and then just get so matter of fact to say, oh, that's too much. And it was literally the same deal that we had on the table for Jalen Waddle, and his just lack of inactivity to not go get Josh a legit weapon. It just made me lose my mind. And I still stand by my reaction at the trade deadline. Don't tell me about his additions of Brandon Cooks and Mecole Hardman. I don't want to hear about it. And we'll talk about that, those two guys, when we get to the game. But those are not needle movers. Those are not players that you bring in to alter the course of your franchise in the second half or the back half of the season. And now, after all that, after the season's over, after the fiasco of a season by your general manager, your owner, Terry Pegula, he's actually going to reward his ineptitude and give this clown a promotion? Are you kidding me? To find out he is now the head of football operations as well as the general manager? Terry Pegula, I hope to God you are right. And maybe it'll come out down the road in a few days or two or a couple weeks from now, maybe months. I don't know. Maybe there's information that you, me, the media, Bills Mafia, that we're not privy to, that maybe there's some nonsense happening behind the scenes, that there's a power struggle of some epic proportion between McDermott and Pegula. I don't know, but you could see it play out during this season. Some of the comments that Sean was making, almost taking subtle jabs at Brandon Beane about some of the roster construction and whatnot. You could tell that there was some sort of power struggle occurring behind the scenes earlier this year. Never in my wildest dreams would I have guessed that Brandon Beane would be the one to win out. And not only not get canned, but then be granted what is essentially total control over this football team. Let me repeat that so you all absolutely know what is happening here. This is total control of your football team. So if you didn't like where he was taking the team before, well, you better get ready, Mafia. You better get ready, because now he has total autonomy. He is now in charge of finding your new coach. He's going to run the draft. He will literally do it all. So how does that very statement make you feel now? That he has total control over this team. So I just keep going back to the saying over and over again. Terry Pegula, you had better be right. You better be right. There's no way out of this. And already, if you go on social media, holy cow, if you were on social media from about 9 to, 12 o'clock today, it's chaos with the rumors flying all over the place. You can fill in any name you want of of a coach, any coaching name that's out there, and it's linked to the Bills, right? But the ones that keep coming back to the top of the list, Brian Daboll, Joe Brady, and Davis Webb. Why? Because all three of these guys have current or previous ties to the organization. Can you imagine for a single second if we hired Joe Brady? Oh my goodness gracious. I know how I will react to that. How will you all react to that? Joe Brady, Brian Daboll, Joe Brady, Davis Webb. Oh man, I just don't know. Maybe I could get on board with Brian Daboll. Davis Webb doesn't have any coaching experience. He's never been a coordinator. He's never been a head coach. He's been a quarterback's coach. And you're telling me that this bright young mind is going to lead the 2026 Buffalo Bills to the promised land? Okay. But Joe Brady? Oh my gosh, can you imagine for a single second if Joe Brady is promoted? How will you react to that? But other names? Mike McCarthy? How about Cliff Kingsbury? he was OC of the Commanders. What do we think about that name? How about Clint Kubiak? Now, hey, sure, the Seahawks are rolling. The Seahawks are rolling right now. And Sam Darnold's leading the way. Are you telling me that Sam is better than Josh Allen? I don't think so. But other names? Brian Flores, he's a defensive guru. Mike Tomlin? Yeah, Mike Tomlin. We are already talking about Mike Tomlin coaching the Bills. I'm listening to call-in shows, and there's Mafia. There's some of you out there who have actually said this on the air. Oh, I want to see Mike Tomlin be brought in here to lead this team. Y'all have lost your freaking minds. You've lost your minds. But if you could have your pick of the litter, who are you taking? I bet we get 10 different answers. God help us if Mike Tomlin is at the top of that list, or Joe Brady. But here's where I stand. This is where I stand. If you are willing to move on from Sean McDermott, it better be because you are going in a completely different direction. You can't possibly go from one defensive head coach to another. So some of the names that I just mentioned, they are out. They're out. You need an offensive guru to pair with Josh Allen. You need to get him some new weapons. Yes, I'm talking to you, Brandon Beane, who is now president of the freaking football operations. And you actually need to utilize the weapons you have. Specifically, I'm talking about Dalton Kincaid. You need to turn him into a dominant pass catching weapon. So get him some good wide receivers, actually utilize Dalton Kincaid, get his knee right this offseason, have surgery so we don't have to keep dealing with this nonsense and game management all freaking week, every week, all season. Get him some dominant wide receivers, get Dalton Kincaid ready, revitalize this offense, and then go full attack mode and go see how many points we can run up week after week. If you bring in another defensive guy, this fan base is going to lose their freaking minds. But as far as sticking with the same theme, if you hire Joe Brady internally, seriously, like this puts us right back where we currently are. I can't get on board with this signing under no circumstances. No circumstances can I sign off on a Joe Brady internal hiring. As much as I've ranted against him this year, side note, he was also a runner-up for the prestigious I Got You in My Sights TB award, mind you. But him and his 5 plays of doom, they can go coach somewhere else. I don't care. Pick wherever the hell you want to go. Please do not let it be with this Buffalo Bills team. I want nothing to do with that. But if I'm being honest, Terry Pegula sticking with Brandon Beane tells me that Joe Brady is an option and is on the table for discussion to lead this team. It's like if you follow Terry Pegula and how he's handled his organizations, it's either change from within or complete inactivity. Just look at how he's run the Sabres. Go sign some offensive guru, pair him with Josh Allen, get him some weapons, unleash Dalton Kincaid, and go attack this league and have a whole new dynamic look to the offense. And I will sign up for that. But to do one of these retreads, to bring in Mike Tomlin, oh my gosh, to stick with Joe Brady, I don't know what I will be doing this time next year. So the next few days, the next few weeks, they're going to be very, very telling. What names will be linked to interviews? Are there coaches that currently have jobs that will try to leave to go coach Josh Allen? I mean, really, if you're a coach of some trash franchise, why wouldn't you jump at the opportunity to coach Josh Allen? Now, as this info has come out and I'm reading socials and all kinds of stuff, I read some expert claim that no one will want to come here because they don't want to work with Brandon Beane. So it's going to be really hard for the Bills to find a head coach. I'm sorry, but that dude, whoever you are, you should not have a job. If you are really in football and you are really a football commentator and, give out content relating to the NFL, if you think the Bills are going to have trouble filling this position, you're insane. This Bills vacancy should be one of the most coveted head coaching positions in the entire league. You get an opportunity to work with the greatest player on the planet. And not only that, but coaching in Buffalo gives you a chance to win a Super Bowl in the next few years. And a Super Bowl in Western New York brings eternal glory to whoever brings it. And you think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. If you're the head coach that brings a Super Bowl to Western New York, you are eternally thanked. There is glory associated with you for the rest of your life. So get out of here. Get rid of this noise that no one will want this job because of Brandon Beane of all people. As much as I can't stand this idea of hiring, of keeping him and then promoting him, I think you're out of your freaking mind if you don't think for a second there's coaches tied to other teams right now who wouldn't jump at the chance to coach Josh Allen. And I think that's possible. I think that option is on the table. Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco, you think he wouldn't jump at the chance to come east and coach Josh Allen? He goes, wait. I get to go from Brock Purdy to Josh Allen? Not that Brock Purdy's bad, but I've used every bag that I have in my bag of tricks and gotten the most out of Brock Purdy. You telling me I can have the best player on the planet and design an offense around him? Sign me up. Whatever it takes, go make that happen. I'll trade you Terrell Bernard and a second-round pick right now for Kyle Shanahan. Who says no? How about Keon Coleman in a second? That's probably wishful thinking at my point, but wishful thinking at this point, but you get my point. Even though he scored a sick tutty in the game Saturday. I love that effort. Love the dive. That was great. Maybe his stock went up a little bit. So Keon in a second. Does that get me Kyle Shanahan? Probably not. But you get where I'm coming from. But I guarantee there are current coaches in their current situations that are like, oh, I'm never going to win here. How do I get to Buffalo? Hey, agent of mine, go see what happens. Go see what it would take to get me the hell out of wherever crappy city I'm playing and coaching, and help me go take over the Bills organization. Throw my name in that hat. Find out what it's going to take to get me out of here. So buckle up, Mafia. You think the season was a roller coaster? Something tells me this offseason is going to be insane. And there's not going to be a shortage of things to talk about over the next 7 months, which definitely makes things a lot easier when you're recording a podcast on a weekly basis. It's just crazy, the amount of information, the amount of things, the amount to process in one Monday morning. It's just insane. But I do want to actually talk about the game that happened on Saturday afternoon, because I spent a lot of time Sunday as I watched the abysmal Texas Patriots game, composing my thoughts. Holy cow, CJ Stroud. We want to blast Josh Allen for his turnovers, and we will. But holy cow, CJ Stroud, are you capable of completing a pass? It's the same thing we talked about with Trevor Lawrence. It's the same thing we talked about with Justin Herbert. It's the same thing. These guys under the lights, they choke. So yeah, we're gonna put a lot of blame on Josh Allen, but he also had 14 other playoff games where he was the best player on the planet. CJ Stroud has never done that. Justin Herbert has never done that. Trevor Lawrence, you had never done that. So come talk to me when these guys actually have playoff success. But yeah, I'm watching this Texans-Patriots game just like shaking my head in disbelief, because essentially the winner of that game was going to walk into the Super Bowl because Bo Nix, lo and behold, broke his freaking ankle at the end of the Bills game. And now are you telling me that the Patriots are going to have any trouble stopping Stidham and this Broncos team, despite the fact that they're going to play in Denver? But after the Bills-Broncos game, I needed a day to kind of get myself together to try to think rationally about what actually happened Saturday afternoon, because my emotions were flying off the charts on Saturday. It was absolutely crushing, losing to the Broncos 33-30 in overtime. And there's so much to say about the actual game. Now that we're 24 minutes into this podcast, we're going to actually talk about the game that happened on Saturday. But there's so many things, there's so many ways to approach it. And so I think what I wanted to do is throw it all the way back to episode 7 of the 3 Ts. Episode 7. It was called Break the Cycle. And it was all about the life and the emotional cycle that we go through, the emotional roller coaster of being a Bills fan. I talked about it. It's a never-ending cycle that goes hope, confidence, heartbreak, start all over, repeat it. Hope, confidence, heartbreak. So not only did this play itself out in the first 2 weeks of the playoffs, but within the whole Denver Broncos game completely. The whole cycle played out in one game. I came on here for my wild card preview. I talked about the Jags. I said the Jags were a tough matchup. I thought the Bills could win, and I thought they would win. I predicted them to win. I hoped they would win. In fact, they did win, which led my confidence going way up. I had hope. I believed they could win. They won, and my confidence went way up. And this seemed to be what most Bills fans were talking about after the Jags game. The confidence of most of the Mafia going into Denver was sky high. I think most people fell into the camp of they believed the Bills could win this game. And if I'm being honest, and if I'm objectively looking at the Broncos-Bills game from Saturday afternoon, I think there is no part of me that thinks the Bills were outplayed by the Broncos. There's no part of me that thinks the Broncos outplayed the Buffalo Bills. You will never convince me that the Bills were outplayed on Saturday afternoon. Never. But as the cycle continues, heartache always enters into the equation. Always. Always as a Bills fan. It always enters into the equation. But again, if I'm being objective, just take the overtime fiasco out of it. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the heartache is the fact that the two best players on the team for the entire season, Josh Allen and James Cook, they made huge mistakes in the most inopportune times in the game. 5 total turnovers. 4 from Josh alone. 1 of those I'm going to put off to the side. We're going to table the last quote-unquote interception. We're going to put that off to the side. But so for now, for the sake of this initial part of the conversation, let's say 3 turnovers for Josh, 1 for Cook, 4 total turnovers. We talked about in the game preview about the odds already being stacked against the Bills heading into this game. We talked about the short week. We talked about the ridiculous injuries. We talked about going on the road to Denver to play the number 1 seed. They had been sitting on their couches, getting well, getting rest, getting ready to play in the Mile High City. So they're sitting there chilling for their bye week. The list went on and on and on. But despite all that, despite all those boxes and all those things, all the odds being stacked against the Bills, despite all that, they literally outplayed the Broncos and should have won this game. Had it not been for the turnovers, I think the Bills would have ran away with this game. After the opening Broncos 7.5-minute drive where they were ultimately held to 3, which was a great stand by the defense. Bend, don't break. That is clear bend, don't break philosophy on the first drive, right? The Bills march right down the field in completely dominant fashion to score on a beautiful play call. And I'll give Joe credit on this one. This is a beautiful play call. and a pass to McCole Hardman, of all people, straight off the practice squad to take the lead 7-3. What happens next? The Bills defense holds the Broncos to a 3-and-out and forces them to punt. We get the ball right back. We start on our own 38. We get a 5-yard run for Cook, followed by a 26-yard run for Josh Allen. We have the ball now. We essentially just flip the field, and we're on the Broncos 31. We have them on their heels. Everything is great. The next play, James Cook fumbles. In my opinion, had he not fumbled, we would have easily scored a tutty there and gone up 14-3. And I'm thinking right there, as we're driving, as we're on the Broncos 31, I'm thinking if we score here and go up 14-3, this game is over. This game is over. Instead, what happens? The Broncos flip the field. They get a tutty to a backup tight end, Crum of all people. And now instead of it being 14-3, we're losing 10-7. That's a huge swing right there. So we get the ball back. We get a field goal. We tie the game 10-10. We then allow them to go on a 13-play touchdown drive that all but exhausts the second quarter, except nope, it's not over, folks. There's 16 seconds left. We have the ball on our own 30, and this is where I will totally disagree with most of you, Mafia, because I know most of you were calling for the head of Sean McDermott right there before the halftime for being too aggressive, for not taking a knee. I'm sorry, I totally disagree with you. You have the best player on the planet, Josh Allen, and I was all in favor of taking a single shot down the field. You hit a 40-yard pass, and now you are suddenly in field goal range. At least take a shot. I am all for trying to get a field goal there with 16 seconds left. Don't come at me with 16 seconds is not enough time. Did you see the Chiefs game? So I don't want to hear about it. Take a chance. Go for a completion. Try to draw a pass interference, which I don't even want to talk about pass interference. But I have zero issue with the aggressiveness that Sean McDermott had shown right before the half. What I have an issue with is with Josh being so absolutely reckless with the ball and running with it completely out in the open, just ready for it to be stripped away. That's what I have a problem with. Your superstar quarterback under no circumstances can ever be so careless with the ball in that situation or ever. So the Broncos recover the fumble, and on the very next play, kick a freebie field goal to literally steal 3 points from the Bills and extend the lead at halftime by 10 points. It was 20-10 at halftime. That is a 14-point swing if you look at it. A 14-point swing on the first turnover and another 3 free points on the second turnover. Now, I'm thinking, okay, halftime, all the nerves are going to be calmed. Everything's going to be reset. Nope. We start with the ball after the half. We're on our own 24-yard line. And what happens? Josh fumbles the ball again. What are we, 2 plays into the second half and he fumbles again? Now, can you blame the O-line? Well, whatever. You can point the blame wherever you want. He still fumbled the ball despite terrible field position, despite the Bills giving up terrible field position. And now the Broncos are already in scoring range. They managed to hold the Broncos to a field goal. But now it's 23-10. So a 20-point swing off of 3 turnovers. The game progresses. Fast forward to just around the 6-minute mark in the third quarter. We're down 23-17 after a great Keon Coleman tutty drive, which I love the effort there. I love the dive. That was sick. We finally managed to intercept Bo Nix on an awesome play by Deion Walker. And what do we do later? 2 plays later, mind you. Josh gives them the ball right back on a terrible throw that's picked off. 2 plays later, you finally get Bo Nix to make a mistake. And he had been chucking the ball all over the place and not necessarily to players. Like, stop me with this. Bo Nix is awesome nonsense. What, he was barely 50% completion percentage on the day? Get out of here. Yeah, he's a nice player. And I like the aggression he plays with. I like the grit. I like the heart. But so don't ever try to compare and put Bo Nix as like a top 5 quarterback in this league. You'll never convince me that that's the case. But anyway, we finally managed to pick this off on an awesome play by Deion Walker, and 2 plays later, Josh gives them the ball right back. You can't have that. Tell me in what world a team should win on the road in the divisional round of the playoffs after giving up 4 turnovers. So I'm sorry. I have a hard time getting all worked up about the absolute nonsense that went down in overtime. But hey, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Despite 4 turnovers in regulation, we somehow still managed to stay in the game because shout out to Matt Prater. 42-year-old Matt Prater brooms a 50-yarder at the end of regulation to tie the game. I mean, what a beast. So tip of the cap to you. Hats off to you, my friend. You are off the hook for this game and for most of the season. I know you got hurt. I know you missed some time, but you were pretty much great. Who had that on their bingo card? We're going to lose T-Bass, and we're going to sign Matt Prater to the team, and he's going to be kicking 50-yarders in the playoffs to take us to OT. But it was right down the freaking middle. I mean, there was no doubt. That was awesome. So well done to you, sir. But then overtime, we actually win the toss. So congratulations. We win the toss. We defer. We kick the ball off. We hold the Broncos to a punt. And then we get the ball at our own 8-yard line. And so what? You wanna talk about officiating? Let's put it all on the table. There was a blatant hold in the end zone. I mean, a blatant hold. I am shocked they did not throw the yellow on this one. And it happened in the end zone. Can you imagine, Mafia, if that hold had been called in the end zone, the game would have been over. We lose on a safety, of all things? Can you imagine adding that to the list of ridiculous ways the Bills lose? Not only regular season games, but playoff games. We lose on a safety because we held in the end zone. So you could complain all you want about the refs, but how about we start right there? But let's continue. Then the pass to Cooks. Now, I watch a lot of football. If I was not a fan of the Bills and if I was not a fan of the Broncos, I think I would have had to say that he caught the ball because I have zero understanding of how that play is actually an interception. It's mind-boggling to me. It makes no sense. No sense. And I think I said this after the Jags game. There is zero accountability on the part of the refs. They are never held accountable for anything. So yeah, that play was atrocious. It was absolutely ridiculous. I'm not sure if that play happens 100 more times if it's ever called an interception again. In fact, if you watch the Bears-Rams game from Sunday night, well, it literally just happened again. And guess what? It was called a catch and not an interception. So I feel like the rules change every time I turn the television on and watch a football game. And then from that point, after that ridiculous quote unquote interception, things just get worse with the PI calls. The Taron Johnson call was terrible. And yeah, I will tell you, that is a terrible call. However, we're not out of the woods, Mafia, because the Joey Bosa late hit, Joey Bosa finally gets to Bo Nix one time during the game. It's in overtime, and it's 3 seconds too late, and he levels him after the ball's out of his hands by clearly multiple seconds. He levels him. So take your pick. Yeah, the pass interference flag on Taron Johnson was 17 yards. You take that off the field, no problem. You're still getting 15 for unsportsmanlike for a roughing the passer call. So either way, that's a Bills penalty. And then the next play, the PI on Trey White for 30 yards, that's ball game. Was it PI? Yeah, it probably was. Now, if I'm going to get mad about it, it's because they really didn't throw too many flags during the regulation portion of this. They're in the main game, and they just started throwing yellows all over the field in overtime. So yeah. I'm mad. Am I mad they didn't ever call PI on the Broncos? Of course. But like I said, I can't choose to live in that space. I can't live over the next 7-8 months blaming the refs because we lost this game. I can't. It never should have gotten to overtime. It never should have been this close. Statistically, we outplayed them. We had the ball for almost 41 minutes. I said what they needed to do going into this game was replicate the Steelers game, and that's exactly what we did, except the difference between this game and the Steelers game, the possession, the time of possession was nearly identical. The rushing yards was nearly identical. So exactly what I said they needed to do, they did, except they turned the ball over 5 times. It never should have been put in the refs' hands to decide the game in the first place. So maybe you all want to live there and blame the refs and everything's rigged and everything's this and everything's that. That's fine. Look, you clearly have a valid opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. But me personally, I can't live in that space where I'm constantly blaming an outside entity. I'm never going to change your mind. You're probably never going to change my mind. But clearly, like in my opinion, if I'm objectively looking at this Broncos game, we outplayed them on the road in Denver with a completely depleted roster, and we gave the game to them because of 4 turnovers. Simple as that. So I ask myself, what am I mad at? What am I upset about after that game's over? I take it all the way back to the offseason and Beane's reluctance to improve the wide receiver room. Yeah, it's funny. I just started the podcast talking about this with the firing of McDermott and the keeping of Brandon Beane. This is what I was pissed off about after the game on Saturday, and this is what I'm mad about now. Fast forward to the trade deadline, and again, his reluctance to move forward with a deal for Waddle or any other impact wide receiver because of what he said, what he deemed the price to be too high. That's where my frustration lies. And that's what I've said for months. And the failure by Beane to react and improve the team at the deadline, the Bills gave themselves zero margin for error. Check the tape. Go back. This is what I've said. You have now put yourself in a position where you have no room for error. Zero margin for error. And the improvements, the so-called quote-unquote improvements, came in the form of Mecole Hardman and Brandon Cooks. And we want to talk about the Brandon Cooks play? Great. At the end of the day, Brandon Cooks, and I think I said this prior to going into either the Jags game or the Denver game, can you make a catch that doesn't look like it's the hardest thing on the planet? You are a wide receiver. Catch the freaking ball. It just comes down to that. You have to catch the ball. Everything's a bobble. Everything's a roll. Everything's a dive. Just catch the ball. Every play involving Brandon Cooks shouldn't have to go to video review. Just catch the ball. But these two players have had less than 6 weeks on the team, and now they're the second and third option behind Shakir. Are you kidding me? And we're in the divisional round of the playoffs, so we have Khalil Shakir, Mecole Hardman, and Brandon Cooks as your top 3 wide receivers. In what world should Josh Allen ever be allowed to operate with those weapons? You lose Shavers, you lose Gabe Davis. They both tear their ACLs, and we are forced to elevate Hardman, and then counting on him and counting on Brandon Cooks to elevate the wide receiver room. That's impossible. It's unfair. It's a ridiculous request, and it points directly back to Brandon Beane. So yeah, I got you in my sights. Well deserved there, sir. Well deserved. Despite all that, we still had a chance to win, and we gave the game away. So yes, we talk about the cycle and breaking the cycle. Well, it's not broken this year because heartache has entered the room yet again. I will be 47 years old when the Bills take the field again. So 40 years really of rooting for this team. It's hard to say what year, what age I was when I don't freaking remember. Last week, you want me to remember when I'm 7? I just don't know what to tell you. So we're going to go with nearly 40 years of rooting for this team, following this team. And I know there's Mafia members out there with way more invested than me, and I truly feel for each and every one of you because losing in this way, losing in this fashion, freaking sucks. But people acted like this was our best shot, like national pundits, professionals who just talk for a living on sports talk and all this. They said this was our best shot, but they failed to realize that this was probably the worst team that we've put on the field in the last 4 to 5 seasons. Look at it objectively. Tell me this was a better roster than 4 years ago, than 3 years ago. Tell me this is a better roster. We've talked about this with the Sean McDermott firing. I thought he did his best coaching job with the worst roster he's had. So the next few days, the next few weeks, the next few months, it's going to be extremely telling with where this organization goes. Are you going to bring in a new? Obviously, you're bringing in a new head coach, possibly 2 new coordinators. But it's going to also be very telling with how they view the next and possibly the last few years of Allen's prime. Because I got news for you, folks. He's not going to be this good for that much longer. He's turning 30. If we are lucky, we will have 4 to 5 more great years. 4 to 5 more great years, and that time is going to absolutely fly by. So Terry Pegula has acted like the time to move is now, but will his next steps after this firing actually reflect that attitude of it's time to go? Like, it is time to go. We need to win now. I don't know, because that's yet to be determined. So a lot is riding on the next few days, weeks, months. But his next moves are also most likely to determine his legacy as an owner of the Buffalo Bills. And he clearly has planted his flag with the retaining and promoting of Brandon Beane. So I hope to God you're right, Pegula. I hope you're right. Is it the right move? I really hope it is, but I sincerely have my doubts. I actually think this is a terrible mistake. I think it's a mistake. I'm just going to say it. And I think it's one that could potentially set this franchise back many, many years. If he doesn't nail this head coaching position, I think this could set the franchise back. So you better get it right, and I hope that you are right. But what do I know? What do I know? I am just a fan with a podcast. So there you go. I'm tired. But I think that's going to wrap it up. I think I've ranted for a long enough time. So I'll just end with this. If you've enjoyed this episode or any other episode of the 3Ts podcast, do me a favor, share it with someone you know. If you are in misery like I am after losing to the Broncos and after the chaos of this morning, just pass it on to someone who you might think would get a kick out of it. Pass it on to a fellow Mafia member. Help me out. I want to grow this thing one episode at a time. So hit that follow, hit that like, leave me a quick review wherever you get your podcast. It would be awesome. Help me build this thing together. And as always, I appreciate you all very, very much. So until next time, whether it's ripping packs, breaking tables, or dropping elbows, keep doing what you love. And as always, go Bills.